Alright, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today on Discovering SharePoint. My name is Kristen Harlem from Connecting Up, and I'm really happy to be your host and moderator for today's webinar. Just a few housekeeping notes for those of you who is new to our webinars. Today's webinar is part of the Tech for Good webinar series, which is brought to you by Microsoft Citizenship, TechSoup Asia, and also Connecting Up. We have attendees from all over Southeast Asia today, so we welcome you all to the webinar. With me today we have Gillian Pearl from Microsoft and also Debbie Ireland from SharePoint, who will be taking you through the presentation and the demonstration of Microsoft SharePoint, as she is one of the experts in the program. For today, we won't be taking any verbal questions. So if you do have any questions, please type them in the question box on your webinar panel anytime during the presentation, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. We decided not to address questions in the middle because sometimes certain questions get answered eventually. So we'll just compile them all till the end. We're also recording the webinar, so all of you will get a link to access the recording online afterwards as well. So before we head on to Debbie's presentation, I'd like to invite Gillian to say a few things from Microsoft. Gillian, over to you.
Thanks, Christine. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to thank you very much for joining us today and let you know that, as Christine mentioned, this webinar series is actually part of a larger effort that Microsoft is committed to around our corporate citizenship activities and supporting the nonprofit sector in terms of education and use of technology. So we hope that you enjoy today's webinar, and please give us your feedback about how you think things went today, as well as areas of interest for you, because we very much develop our programs around nonprofit capacity building based on the feedback that we receive from the nonprofit sector. So thank you again for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy the webinar.
Thanks, Gillian. And just before we move on, I'd just like to probably say a few things about TechSoup Asia, especially for those of you in Australia or New Zealand who probably are not aware of this. So TechSoup Asia is a new expansion of the donations program into Asia. In Australia, you know of Connecting Up, and New Zealand, you know of TechSoup New Zealand. So Connecting Up have worked with TechSoup Global and the Hong Kong Council of Social Service to bring technology donations to Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, and Vietnam. And NGOs in these countries can access donated software from Microsoft and a few other partners. So that's just a bit of TechSoup Asia. So I guess we do have a lot to cover, so I will now pass you on to Debbie. Debbie, you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, everybody. Christine, were you able to run that poll for everybody? Just fill in.
Yep, sure. So we'll be running a poll now, which you will. Yeah, so you will see a poll on your screen on how familiar are you with SharePoint. So if you can just click on which represents you, and I can share the results later on once the polling is finished. So we're just still taking answers now.
I don't think I can see it, Kristen, but I'm sure you'll tell me what you are.
Yes, I will put it up on the screen, so just a minute. Okay, I think almost everyone has voted, 88%. Alright, I will close it now, and I will share it on the screen, so you can see 28% have never used it and know nothing about it, 33% have very minimal knowledge, and 31% is a moderate user, and a very small percentage is a power user or more advanced users. So that's your results, Debbie.
Wonderful. That's a good bag, but I guess it means that we'll start from the very beginning, and hopefully I'll give you a broad overview of what SharePoint can do for you. So my name is Debbie Ireland, and I live in New Zealand, and I've been working with SharePoint for about the last 7 or 8 years, and we live and breathe it and do lots of training and organise conferences all over the Asia Pacific region, including Singapore, Hong Kong, New Zealand and Australia. So let's get started. I'm just wondering. Okay, so what I'm going to cover today, just checking, Christine, I'm all good, everyone can see that screen there okay?
All good.
Okay. is I'll cover a little bit of an overview just with some terminology and concepts about what it is that SharePoint does. I'm going to give you a little bit of theory around things so you get an understanding for what you can do with it. And then I really want to base my demonstrations around how you can use it to improve productivity, so what it can do for you and your organisation, and look at some of the specific features. I will keep it relatively easy, and I'll try and provide as many examples as I can during the demonstration. So lots of demonstrations, and save your questions for the end, as Christine mentioned. So first of all, what is SharePoint? And I guess to different people it's different things. So we're going to take a look at all of these different aspects today. Look at how it can help us with collaboration, so sharing of information, communicating better, being able to pass knowledge on between one worker and another, how we can use it to store documents and share documents, so that in some cases replaces your file shares or enables a whole lot of information to be stored up in the cloud. And we'll take a look at how it can be used for all the different ways of Intranet, Internet and Extranet, and a few other bits and pieces as well. So first of all, I didn't put all of the people that use it, but these are just some of the not-for-profits that have attended our conferences, and I only covered Australia and New Zealand. We didn't cover the Singapore event in January, but as you can see, lots of people are already using SharePoint, so I'm sure if you wanted more information that there's lots out there and lots of different places that are using it in different types of ways. So first of all, just to look at the three different types, when we talk about Internet use of SharePoint, it's actually the public-facing website. So I'm going to show you one of those in the first demonstration, but some organisations can use Office 365, for example, to create a public-facing website that is completely SharePoint. So all it is all website pages and information that's kept up for anonymous users and the public to access without having to log in or anything. So that's the Internet aspect of it. The second one is Extranet, which is when you might, and I guess for an example for not-for-profits, I've got a few different companies that I've worked with that are using it. There's a search and rescue company I'm working with at the moment, and they teach a lot of people, so they have volunteers that they want to put through a whole lot of courses, so they need them to be able to log on and get access to information. So they're using their public website, but then they're using authenticated users. So by that I just mean that people need to have a login to actually access the information on their site. The other one might be members. If you're an organisation that has members and you want them to be able to log on to access specific information, then that would be your extranet example as well. And then you've got suppliers, contractors, partners and so on. So you've got your public access where they don't require a login. Then you've got Extranet where they do require a login. And then the third one is Intranet. So Intranet is when we've got internal users within your organisation. So there'll be people that work for your company, and it's a place where you can share information that only your company has access to. So we'll take a look at that as well. The different versions of SharePoint I'm really not going to cover here, and actually Connecting Up are probably better place to do this, but there are all sorts of different versions from 2010 and similarly in 2013. So what we're going to be looking at today is SharePoint 2010. There are versions that are free, that are licensed, that come with additional functionality, and then you've got the offering as part of Office 365, which gives you email, it gives you SharePoint, it gives you links and all sorts of different things. So, and then 2013 I'm going to be demonstrating a little bit of that as well. But I think I'm just going to table that for now, and if you need to know more about licensing, you'd best ask Microsoft or Connecting Up for that. Terminology, just to say that there is lots and sometimes it's really confusing, so I'm going to take some time just to simplify some of the common terminology and things that are used within SharePoint, just to make it really, really simple for you to understand. And as far as the demonstrations that you'll see today, I've broken them into 5 areas. So we're going to be talking about sharing knowledge, and that's actually with your colleagues or out amongst the public. Storing of information, which is going to be all about storing list information or information that you might otherwise keep in spreadsheets and documents. Controlling file chaos, which is all about documents and document libraries, so storing spreadsheets and Word documents and PowerPoints and so forth up in one central place. And then accessing information, which we'll talk about cross-device and how you can access information from anywhere and anytime. And then lastly, we'll take a look at some of the very cool new features with SharePoint 2013 and social, which is a big part of actually getting buy-in for your intranets and your sites. So the first one is all about sharing knowledge. And I guess the main reasons for this is to improve communication and to provide information to everyone that works in your organisation, but in one place. So it's capturing not just formal knowledge, but informal knowledge captures as well. So things like discussions, you know, quite often you'll hear the term water cooler discussions that people might have, and some of that information then leaves the person when the person leaves the company. So how can you actually capture some of that knowledge? And also making it a one-stop shop. So providing an area where people can go to so they don't have to rely on email to get updates on staff leaving or staff arriving, so that the CEO or the manager of the company or the team can communicate out to their team, and it's all recorded and it's all available online for everyone to share. So before I get into this first demonstration, I just want to give you a little bit of overall architecture on how SharePoint sites are set up. So if you think about a site, you can think, well, you've got a company and they could have a public site, and then they could have a whole lot of sub-sites underneath it. So you could look at each one of these as being a bucket of information. So you might have your organisation, and then you might have each department having their own site. And so you'll see this when you look at the demonstration, that they are all just individual units, and you can go down to layers and layers and layers. Within each one of those sites, they all have different pages, they have different content, and they can all have different permissions. So it means that when I set up my SharePoint site, I can say I want everyone to have access to the ABC company level, but I only want the IT department to have access to that level. And I can lock those permissions down at a very low level. So it gives you all of that ability within the application. Right, I'm going to jump into a demonstration now, so I'm just going to change my screen. And we're going to go to this one here. So what I've got is, and I'm showing you this site because you can go and have a look at it afterwards. It's publicly available. It's actually a community portal for the whole of the Asia Pacific region, and it's all built on SharePoint 2013. But just to show you conceptually, first of all, the idea of this is a SharePoint site. It's available to you publicly. If you go to www.sharethepoint.com, you can see it, but it's all built inside of SharePoint. So when we talk about having publicly available SharePoint sites, we have the likes of one of these, where you've got all sorts of different pages, like any website you go to, that you can see information. And then underneath all of them, these are actually all different sub-sites. So I just want to show you that first of all, because I'm going to come back to it and show you how easy it is to edit and add some things to a page. But that's showing a public-facing site. The second one I'm showing here is actually all in SharePoint 2010, and this is just a demonstration site to give you some ideas of the functionality. So first of all, just to give you a bit of a look around, up the top you'll see that there's navigation along the top here and along the side here, and that navigation along the side changes depending on where I am on the site. I'm logged on to the site as June Edwards in this case, so it tells me that I'm logged on and I'm authenticated as this particular user, and I've got all sorts of navigation. You'll see that the navigation when I go into the different places is very similar to if you're used to using Office 2010 and 2007 and 2013 now, then you've got the ribbon, and the ribbon will change depending on what you're doing, and that's exactly the same inside of SharePoint. So it's really easy for you to find your way around and for it to be familiar as with other tools that you might use. So on this front page here we've got, this is, as I said, an intranet site, so it's only for the people in this particular organisation. So for a not-for-profit or any organisation like that, they would have only access to the people that are in that company. The login here, if you already have email set up or if you have Active Directory, then that will pull from that information and it will automatically pick up that person. So if you've logged on to your computer when you open the SharePoint site within the browser, it'll pick up who you are. But there's all sorts of ways for setting that up. So the types of things you'd expect to see on an intranet is things like announcements. So people can actually go ahead and add their own announcement, and you can have all sorts of approval on these sorts of things. So you can say, well, I only want this information to be visible when when it's been approved. So you could have approval set up so that one person in your company approves it, or you could just let everyone add their own announcement. People can also add an expiry date, and what that means is that it'll disappear off this front page here as soon as the expiry date comes up. So it's nice and easy for people to manage it. You can add things like quick links, and these are really easy to add as well. So you can have all sorts of quick links to information that your organisation uses. And you can have things like team discussions. So the idea behind a team discussion and behind a lot of the information that's kept on your SharePoint site is that the team discussions provide a way of giving all sorts of information without having to use email. So if you're familiar with using an email where you've started an email and you've sent it out to 10 different people and then 5 different people have responded in different ways and included different people, and all of a sudden you've got all of this mishmash of information that it's really hard to control, then team discussions provide a way where you can reply in line, like a forum, to the discussions. So you actually don't need to have the use of email anymore, although on the other hand you can have all of these team discussions provided with alerts and so forth. You can have, which means that you can get an email every time a new one's created. You can have a team calendar, and I'm going to show you how this actually does work within Outlook. If you use Outlook, I'll show you that in the next demonstration. But it means that I can go ahead and I can create a calendar specifically for my team and have information in here that's relevant to everyone. Anyone can add. It's very similar to Outlook, and the information that's there is available to my whole organisation or team. We'll go into the library part of it and the list part of it next, but just to give you a little bit more flavour of the types of sites you might have, I've got a board of directors site here as an example. So with their site, only the board of directors would have access to this. There's company news. They can have their own news, their own documents, their own informal discussions, their own profiles and pages and so forth on the site. You could have different project sites. So say you're working on a particular project, you could have quick links like all of the documents, your own project calendar, your own contacts for a particular project, or your own knowledge base. And all of these can be set up as sub-sites within your SharePoint environment. So at the top level, you've got this, but then underneath, you've got all these different sub-sites that also contain different information relevant to that particular group of people that are logged on. For each of these sites, I can actually go ahead and create new pages. So as you see with all of these different pages that I've shown you, they just contain different pieces of information. But to show you how easy it is to add a new page, I'm going to go ahead and create one now, because each of the pages within SharePoint can be edited and information added to them. So I'm just going to call this demo, and I'm going to create the page. So from this, I can say this is the demo page. I can go ahead and I can insert all sorts of different things. So I can insert pictures, I can insert a table, I can then change the layout of the table to a different style. I can put in a link, so I could go www.bing.com, and that'll automatically make a link out of that particular one. I could change the layout, so I could change it to be 2 columns with a header and make the heading up here. I can change the fonts, the styles, to different headings, and so on. And then when I save and close it, then I've got all of my information saved there. And again, it's just an easy way for me to edit. And then I could go ahead and add this demo page up on my navigation bar here or down the side here, just for people to access the information. So if you just look at the board of directors and see how there was the board member profile, that's just a page within my website. So it's just a matter of adding all sorts of pages within my website. If you're on a public site, and I'll do this if I have time at the end, I can add pages on a public site, but I have the option when I do add a page on here to be able to see publishing features. So it means I can manage when the pages get published. I can have them approved. So, for example, in our organisation, I might write a whole lot of content, but I can use a spell checker, but I'm a shocking grammar person, so I always have someone edit them before they actually go public. So there are the ability to manage your content within your public sites, or if you've got a big enough organisation, so you can have all of that ability as well. So I'll just jump back into my presentation now to jump on to the next one, which is all about storing information. So we've talked a little bit about the fact that you can have sites, and sites have pages, and you've got all these ways that you can share knowledge. The next part is about how you can store information within those sites. So to that end, we've got the goal here is we want to be able to deliver the information everywhere we can, easily and quickly. And we don't want to have... The way that you can do that within SharePoint is by using lists. And everything, the easiest way to explain it is that everything within SharePoint is either a list or a library. And the easiest way to think of that is if you can imagine a spreadsheet. You know, the spreadsheet's got rows of information, right? And then it's got, along the top, you've got all the different columns that describe that type of information. Well, we can create those exact same things within SharePoint, and they're just called lists. And I'm going to show you some examples of lists that you can see on this diagram. We've got a list where this could just as easily be a spreadsheet, or it could just as easily be a whole lot of Word documents. So my point here is that instead of having all these pieces of paper or all these Word documents that you're keeping that are floating around, or you're keeping spreadsheets, instead you can keep them in an online version called a list inside a SharePoint site. Now the value of that is that with a spreadsheet, someone might open it or lock it if it's on a file share, or else they might just keep it on their C drive or on their own laptop, or they'll take it home and no one has the shared information. So with a list in a SharePoint site, everyone can be adding to it. So they're just like online forms that you can create in a matter of minutes, and to replace all of those wild spreadsheets that you have out there. So a library, on the other hand, if you look at the bottom of this one, is exactly the same as a list, but it has an attachment. And the attachment is a Word document, an Excel document, or a PowerPoint, or a PDF, or whatever it might be. So the only difference is that it's a hybrid, I guess, of being a list. So you can still have all those columns of describing items. So that means that you can put information up there and then have different columns describe those documents that are in there. So we'll take a look at that too. So you can create these lists. Some of the lists come out of the box, and you'll see that there's tasks and ones that are just created as templates that you get given to you when you create a site. And then you can create custom lists. So you've got things like a correspondence register if you want to keep track of, you know, correspondence that you have with people, or drawings was an idea for one organisation, or custom people lists. So you might just want to record all of your team, or all of your people, or all of your contractors. Or you could create a list on all tips and tricks that you might use often, or maintenance lists, or people, or digital diary lists. And that was just for, I can't remember what that was used for actually, that's an old one. Right, so let me just show you what a list looks like inside of SharePoint. So I'm just going to go back to our Office Train Intranet here again. And as I said, we're going to talk about document libraries after this one, so I'm just going to focus on the list to start with. And down here, in fact, even things like announcements and team discussions, these are all just lists. They're just lists of information where you've got a title and things that explain them. So I could have a list that is a list of account codes, which have the title and the code. As I said, these could be spreadsheets, but instead of spreadsheets, it means that I could go into this, or anyone else in my organisation, 10 people could be editing information in this list at the same time, and I could change things here quite easily to update it and so forth and save it, and then it's all kept and it's all available to me online. So another example might be an assets list, where I might store all of the assets I have in my organisation. Another one might be a list of all the courses that we offer, or the members that you have. I can have a contacts list, and that gives me all the information on contacts. Some of these lists I can also synchronize directly to Outlook. So I can go up the top here, and you can see I can add a new item. I could delete items that are there. And I can also do things at a list level, so I can go ahead and do all sorts of customization for each of these lists and create new columns and so on. I can also connect it to Outlook. So if you are an Outlook user, this is where it becomes quite valuable, because things like a contact list I might want to store also inside of Outlook. So I'm just going to show you, this is Microsoft Outlook here, and I have my lists here, which are all fine. Sorry, my own personal contacts here. But if I want to, I can also go onto one of my SharePoint sites, and I can actually see all of my contacts that are on the SharePoint site as well. And it means that if I open up a contact here and I edit it, that when I go back to my SharePoint site, it will be edited in here, which is great because it means that I can share all of the contacts that I might have. And especially with small organisations, if you don't have big CRM systems and you want to manage contacts, it's a great way of doing it. You can store all sorts of information within your SharePoint site, but you can also go back and you can see them in here. Or if I was to send a new email message, I could go ahead and I can actually see those lists within my other list, if I want to send it from there. So it means that I've got all the information nice and handy to me. The other things that I can synchronize with Outlook while I'm in here are things like a calendar. So you saw how I had, at the moment I've got 3 calendars showing. I can actually show them as calendar overlays, or I can show them just side by side. And it means that if I've got a SharePoint calendar, which this one here is a SharePoint calendar, I can see all of my team activity as well as what's in my personal calendar. So my personal calendar has things to do with DB item, whereas the team site calendar has things to do with the whole of the organisation that I work for. And it means that I can see everything in one glance and again update it and know that it's going to be updated back to my SharePoint site. So that was calendars. And the other great thing that you can do is, if you remember when I showed you the team discussions. So I like team discussions in 2010. I love the communities in 2013, which you can take them to the next level, but we'll have a look at that in a little while. But I love the fact that you don't have to be using email to track things. So things like team discussions, I can also synchronize to my Outlook. So I can actually go down and see under here, for example, I've synchronized the team discussion here, and I can actually post a reply directly to the team discussion from within Outlook. So if you're used to using Outlook, it's good to know that whatever you do inside a SharePoint also works within, SharePoint, and it integrates very, very well. So you can do lists like your calendar, your team discussions, your contact lists, and then the other one you can do is also task lists. So if you do use tasks, you can actually bring in as well tasks from some of your SharePoint sites and synchronize them and see them all in the one place. So your to-do list has everything from your SharePoint sites and from your Microsoft sites. From your Outlook. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a taste for lists. If I look at going to a task list as an example, then within the list, I think we looked at any of those, we had the items along here and then the things that describe that information along there, and I can go ahead, edit any item or add a new item in. And a task list, for example, I could go ahead and put 100% complete. So it's a way of assigning tasks to people and being able to track tasks. Now, I use this a lot on projects. So on your project site, this would be a great, or within any organisation, if you're trying to manage projects or any kind of tasks, you can use task lists to do that. So that's one of the out-of-the-box templates. So that, I think, covers me off for talking about lists, at least at an overview level. The next one is all about controlling file chaos. So it's taking lists to the next level and saying, all right, we're going to now store documents within our SharePoint site. So document management is a big thing that you can do within SharePoint, and a really, I think, large use of how a lot of not-for-profits are using it. So where they don't want to be using shared drives, but they want to be able to use some online capability so people can access it. One of the things I think I've talked to a lot of smaller organisations about is the fact that people are geographically all over the place. So you might have organisations that have a headquarters in one place, but then they have smaller offices in lots of different areas. And in that case, instead of having to print out documents or keep things on different file shares and so forth, it's really, really good to have something online that they can use. So lists is one example and the documents is the other. The list example that I can give you is that Graceland's actually in New Zealand. They were doing, I think it was purchase orders actually, and they used to have to mail between the different offices their purchase orders for a whole lot of sign-off. And they changed that process by simply creating a SharePoint list and then having everyone do that online, and it saved enormous amounts of time and cost, as you can imagine, an administrative overhead. And instead of being able to, instead of having to wait about 3 days to have some purchase order mailed and approved and go through this entirely big process, they could do it all within their SharePoint site, and it would happen automatically, and they had this record that was just immediately available for them. I'll show you a similar one with an expense claim in a minute as well. So documents. Big thing here is about reducing time and duplication and being able to get to the documents that you need, and also being able to collect relevant information about them. And this comes down to the metadata that I'll show you. And the reason for that is so that when you do a search for something and you want to find a document, that you've got all the relevant information coming to the top, so you don't have to open up 10 different documents to find something. You can actually create a view that gives you the information a lot faster. The last thing on documents, which I'll touch on, is that SharePoint does give you the ability to open up a document, and I'll show you how it opens up within a web browser, but also to open up a document at the same time as someone else. So an example for this might be an annual end-of-year report, and where more than one person has to work on it at once. And the advantage here is that you can have multiple people logged in online working on the annual report, and each section gets locked at a particular time so that not everyone's updating the same section at once, but you don't have to wait for someone to finish either. Okay, so with libraries, they're a repository. You can store up to 5 million files in a library. There's all sorts of different types of libraries, so I'm going to show you a couple of image libraries and document libraries, ones that create wiki libraries just for storing pages of information. And you can create all sorts of different views so that you can filter and target the information. You can get even more complex, and I won't go into this, I don't have enough time today, but you can go to the next level where you have versioning, check in and out, and content approval. So there is that element of document management as well. So if you want to store different versions of a document, you can do that. So the document metadata is something that, if you've worked within Word, you have, and you go to File Properties, you can see specific metadata that's been entered about a document, like the date that it was created, the person who created it, and stuff that the system actually creates. What you can do within SharePoint is you can add more metadata about a document. So in the example that I've got up here, you might have the file name, you also might have a document number, a type of policy, the business unit being procurement, and the review date. Now the reason you'd store all of this against your document is so that then you can create a view or a report of all of the documents within one library that might have a review date coming up within the next month that you want to then review all those documents for. So it gives you like a whole reporting system at the same time. So this is just called metadata. So metadata is just information about the document that you're capturing. So let's take a look at some libraries. So I can create lots and lots of different libraries on my site. I could create publicly accessed ones, or in this case, because I'm on the intranet, I can create ones just for people in my organisation to use. I might want to create a few different libraries because I might want to change permissions. For example, I might have management documents that are only able for the whole library to be accessed by managers. And then I might have ones that the whole organisation can access. Now you can see here I've got Word documents, PowerPoint, Excel, all within the same library. And then I've got the ability to actually go ahead and I can edit them within Word, so I could open it within the Word browser. I can view or edit it in the browser, and I'm just about to show you that. And I can view and edit the properties. Let's look first of all at the properties. And what the properties are that exact metadata that I just showed you on that slide. So I've got properties saying this is a name, this is the type of document. I can actually change the type of document I have in this particular library, and it'll give me a different set of metadata based on what I've put in there. Without going into that in too much detail, I just want to show you the reason for wanting to do that is underneath the document tab here, I can actually go new document, and I can have all these templates preloaded so that my users just have to go in and go, I want to create a new invoice, I want to create a new product information sheet, or whatever there. So the other thing is, I said I can open it and edit it in Word, but if I've got a lot of people that are using my SharePoint site and they don't have big bandwidth, or they don't want to have to download the document, they just want to view it and see what's on it, I can actually just click on it, and I've done this so that it opens in another window just for me now, and it actually opens in what they call Office Web Apps. And you get this, and it means that it's shown within the browser, so it's not within Word that I've opened it. I can edit the document in here, and it'll give me very basic edit capability, or I could download it and open it in Word. But as I said, the main thing here is that it's a lot faster for me to be able to click on this and view it in the browser, especially if you're in remote places, or your users are not, not needing to do really high-powered Word and so forth editing. They just need to be able to read the information. I can also set some approval things up, so you can see this one here says in progress, so there's different workflows that can be set up to approve a particular document, and it'll go and it'll tell me who's been asked to approve it, at what stage it is, and you can see here the one here that's running is the approval one, and that it's been sent to certain people, and it tells me where it's at, who got assigned it, and I can go ahead and set all sorts of things there. So for documents that, and it has a history of all the outcome of all that. For documents that I need approval on, that's a great way of doing that as well, because it actually emails a group of people and then it stores all the information about what they said when they were going ahead and approving some of those documents. I think I mentioned that you can have versions also on the different documents, so I could have a whole lot of different versions being stored within SharePoint of particular documents. I can have an image library, and I've got a couple of different image libraries here. So I've got one that shows me, so on my, and it gives me a preview, I can see everything about that particular image on my site. If I was to show you on our public site here, all our corporate, all our branding images, all the images to do with speakers and so forth on here, there's huge amounts of images, and it means that they only get used once on a, they get stored in one place, and they can be used throughout the entire site. So instead of me needing to go and look for a particular image, I know that it will be stored within this website, and I can go to it and I can link to it anywhere else. So it means everyone's using the same corporate logos, or if I have different pictures of people stored on our site, then they're all going to be stored in the same place and so on. So I've got an image library. In this particular intranet example, we've got the staff, supposedly, so you could have all your staff images within here. I've got a forms library, so I can have this is using InfoPath, and I'm not going to go into detail of this, but just to know that you can have forms. I do know that this was used very widely at Great Winds in New Zealand, where they set up a whole lot of forms. So just to give you an example of this, a form could be exactly the same as what you do on a list, but this is just using a different type of form. But you can see here I've got an expense claim form. So I can choose the person, I can start editing whatever I want to, choose a code for it, choose an amount, and it's going to go ahead and update for me. I'm not choosing the right things here, but anyway, all the different things. So you can imagine purchase orders, expense claims, leave forms, anything like that, and I can go ahead and submit them and then get all sorts of different approval assigned with that, and they'll all be kept in the one place. So it's just a different type of library. So libraries are great. They can be kept at any level, at that top level, or if I was to go down to this level, you know that the board reports being kept in here are only accessible to the people at that level, or again that project one where I showed you before, you could have a specific set of project documents that are kept on the project site and only accessible to the people within that particular project. Okay. The next one I wanted to talk a little bit about is just accessing information. And I've mentioned before how important it is, or one of the key features of SharePoint is the fact that you can access it online anywhere. And probably one really good thing to look at if you haven't already is Office 365. And while I'm not going to do a demonstration on exactly what Office 365 is, one of those sites I was showing you was using it. But it enables you to have email and SharePoint all within for a real low monthly cost, and Microsoft take care of all of the infrastructure, all of the hosting of that, and it's all just available online to you. So a really nice, easy way for you to get set up and running really, really fast. And you can have your public website on there, your private intranet on there, and everything. And the real value of this is that if you do have people that work for your organisation that are geographically dispersed, this is one nice way for them to do it. The other thing about accessing information, so that's your access anywhere, anytime, is that they've made it easier and easier to use lots of different devices. So I did a demonstration a couple of weeks ago where we took along, I've got an iPad, a friend of mine had a Surface, we had an iPhone, an Android phone, a Windows 8 phone, and we were able to demonstrate using SharePoint. So if you can imagine just being able to go on and looking up policies, or seeing what the latest news is that's on the announcements list, or going and checking, you'll see the social feed in a little while, but any of that information, but from your mobile device, it is becoming more and more important. And I think with lots of organisations now, it can't just be limited to one device, and so Microsoft have been working hard on the latest version so that it is cross-device and cross-browser edge. The other thing about key information is making sure that the views are relevant to who you are in the organisation, and that you're only getting to information that you need to see. So the goal here being that you get to the information you need for a few clicks. And you can do that, part of the information you see is through web parts. And I just wanted to talk about a couple of different web parts that you can put onto SharePoint pages. So a web part is just really a view into different types of information. In this case, you can have things like Facebook, or Twitter, or Flickr, or a tip of the day, or you can integrate all sorts of other types of information into an image slider, so that your website becomes alive with data that's being pulled from all sorts of different types of places. So just to explain a little bit more on what web parts are, if we look at a home page here, we have all sorts of web parts. This is showing me a view of information, sorry, not that one there. This one here is showing me a view of information into information that's already on my site, but I can just as easily see web parts that bring the information from other systems in my organisation, or from external systems like the weather, or like Twitter, or like any of those. Okay, in the essence of time as well, I'm going to jump on to social. So this is when I'm going to talk a little bit about the new stuff that has come out in SharePoint 2013. And if you were to go to Office 365, you would end up with SharePoint 2013, which is the latest and greatest, obviously, and all the new improvements. Some of the things I'm going to show you are available in 2010 slightly differently, and but it's really just to show you this how social is becoming such a big emphasis within SharePoint. So it's about connecting to people, putting content into context, so that's really about making the content relevant to the person who's logged on and the information relevant to them, and then also about being able to find and connect with different people and to find the information that you need. Now the reason I believe that, and I do an entire hour presentation just on social, so I've only got a few minutes to describe this, but the reason I do believe that social is so important is that you've seen some of the things that I've demonstrated as an intranet. We could put policies and procedures there, we could put news on there, we could put an announcement from, you know, about different projects you have happening or different causes you're supporting or anything like that, but it's all very one way. As soon as you bring social into the picture, you're allowing people to provide feedback and to make it more interactive, and it means that people will come back to your site and they'll use it, and it'll be a lot better adopted than it would be if it's just a static pages after pages of information where people kind of go, okay, that's great, but what does it do for me as well? So the whole social aspect is about taking all of that knowledge that can be in some ways informal and bringing it into the organisation. If I was to say, well, I mean, everyone out there, not everyone, but probably most of you that are on this call use Facebook, and so all our children are using Facebook. There's all sorts of other social mechanisms. There's Twitter, there's LinkedIn, there's I could name probably 10 of them, but the whole thing is that they are public domain information. So what SharePoint can do is put some governance around still having all that social interaction, but if it's your corporate and your company information, you want your company talking within your company rules type of thing, then you need to provide them some way to do that. So let's take a look at SharePoint Social, and I'm going to go to this page here. Now it might ask me to log on, so just bear with me 1 second. So this is actually using a different type of authentication. You can see that I pressed Facebook there. It's actually using my Facebook login to log me on, but it's not using anything else. So what this is a My Site. So everyone in your organisation can have a My Site. Now with this, you can actually go ahead and create your own site, by the way. So if you go to the Share the Point site and go to Join Us, you can actually create your very own My Site here. It's all free, it's a community site, but just to have a play with what SharePoint's about, by all means, go ahead. What this does though is it says, okay, this is my site, and everyone in the organisation, or whoever you want to can have one, whoever's got a log on to your network can have one. So you can see information about that person, you can see a little bit of information about what their specialist areas are, what their activities are, and then you have this news feed. So I can go ahead and I can follow other people. So I can see all the people that I'm following, all the people that are following me. I can see updates, so I can go to the Everyone tab and see updates from other people as well as just the people that I'm following. I can go ahead and like something, so I can reply to a post, and I can go ahead and like it. I can insert things, so I can go ahead and say I want to put, I've just copied this one, this is a YouTube video, and I can say, have you seen this? And as soon as I put it in, it recognises that it's a YouTube video, so I can either insert videos from YouTube or from SharePoint, and I can say this is a recap NZ vid, just to change the name. Oopsie, I just did the wrong one, sorry. I did the wrong recap NZ vid, and check that, and I can go ahead and post it. And the cool thing about that is I can actually see the video right within my screen. So I could also update a picture, load a picture, so I could go to my own library here, go to pictures, choose a picture, and upload it and share that with everyone as well. So I'm starting to share information and posts and pictures, and then everyone following me gets to see my updates on here. I can also mention other people the same way you can with Facebook, and I can tag things, so you can see that this tag's trending at the moment because everyone's using the Australian SharePoint Conference as a tagged trend. So that's my newsfeed part of my site, and as I said, everyone in your organisation gets one. I also have the concept of SkyDrive, which is where I can keep all of my own personal documents here. So I can add in new documents, and I can actually just drag a document directly. I won't do this because I haven't got one ready, but directly I can just drag it straight from my Explorer view across into here, and it'll just load it up into here. And I could also synchronize that, and it'll end up on my desktop, so I've got an online version of that happening. The other part about social is that we've got community sites, so that's what we're going to look at next. And you can take a look at this just to see how it's set up if you want, just by going to the Share the Point Connect community site. And on here, this is a special type of SharePoint site, but it's got these cool pictures that then show you how many discussions are related to that. And I can upload, because I'm from New Zealand, I've got some pretty New Zealand pictures up there. But everyone can add a discussion in. So we can say, okay, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the one on change, training and user adoption. So these show me the different categories that there are, and you can see there's contributors to this community site. But imagine using this if you wanted it for FAQs for your organisation. This is a public one, so everyone can access this, but within an organisation it might be for a particular project. It might be to help people understand what's happening about things that are going on. And people can start their own discussions, or else they can reply to them, and they can like them. They can get marked as best replies, so you can have moderators that say, yes, I want to mark that as a best reply. But it's a way of sharing information and knowledge. So while I haven't got time to cover a lot of this, do come back and have a look at that community site, because it's a great way of showing how to share discussions and participate in different things. You can have members for each of your community sites. So I could have one community site just about a new project that's happening, or just about the HR team, and I could limit who the members were. And you can actually set up for people to get points and reputation, so you can include that whole competition thing where the more people participate, then the more points they get. So in this case, they might get 10 points for creating a new post, or 5 for replying to one. So a really great way of encouraging people to actually come on and use your site. The other way that the whole newsfeed thing can work is that you can have a team site, and this is just showing a vanilla team site that you can set up from the beginning, but you can have a newsfeed on this particular site, and you can have people contribute to this newsfeed, and whatever's being put on this team site newsfeed then will show up within your newsfeed on your own personal site. So you'll see that when I go to my personal site, if it's something that I've followed, like a site that I'm followed, you can see that it's come up here, what is the best feature of your intranet, and that's come from the newsfeed that I have. So you can see that there's that whole social, very, very interactive way of communicating with people, way of following people. I can go and look at someone else and see who they're following and find out all about them. And I can follow people that way as well. It would tell me if I was to scroll down here if there was anyone I hadn't followed, and then I get to see all sorts of information about them as well. Okay, I know I'm running out of time, Christine, so I wasn't sure if you wanted me to finish exactly on 4. How am I doing?
Yeah, maybe about 5 more minutes. We don't have that many questions, so.
Not much question yet. Oh, look, I was at the end of that. So I can demonstrate some more. The thing would be, which area do people want to see more information in?
There was one inquiry about seeing the document sharing in action, such as merging changes, locking sections.
Okay, let me just see. Actually, if anyone hasn't seen Link, this is also a great tool that you do get with Office 365, I think. I'm just going to see if Liz is on. So Liz and I work together because we all work remotely. We use Link. It's very much like Skype. and we'll see if we can't do some live document co-authoring right there and then. If she's around, yes she is. Okay, so I'm going to go to, it's very live, see, it'll be, okay, so corporate docs. So what happens with co-authoring in this part is we both open up the document. So I'm just going to tell her which library I'm going to. How about the supply contract? Now I've got the supply contract open here, but I'm actually going to edit it in Word, so I'm going to open up the Word document. And I'm just, because it's a demo one, I'm just going to log on. Okay, so I've got the document open here, and hopefully Liz will be coming on as Bill, hopefully. And you'll see once she does, it'll give me a notification down the bottom here of the fact that two people will be editing the same document. That example I gave, by the way, of an annual report was from a not-for-profit actually, but it's just, okay, she's just coming on. So it'll notify me down the bottom when something's happening. And if I wanted to start editing a particular part of the document, then I can start adding information in here, and when this comes on, it'll actually show me which part of the document that she's locking. So it does different things depending on whether it's Word or whether it's PowerPoint. If it's PowerPoint, it'll tell you that that slide's locked, whereas if it's Word, it'll tell me which part of the document is locked. Okay, just coming on and take it, so that won't be too long. Oh, there you go. Oh no, that's not it. Okay, so hopefully it'll show me in a little while just that she's editing this document when I go ahead and save it. I'm sorry, this might not work.
Maybe while you're doing that, so document sharing is available for both 2010 and 2013 SharePoint, isn't it?
Correct, it is. Yes, it is. Did you have any other questions for me?
It's just not familiar with, Scott is not familiar with InfoPath, but does it function similar to Word, PowerPoint, etc.?
No, InfoPath is, yes, it kind of does where you have a online, an offline, so a client version, so you know how you have Word on your desktop and PowerPoint, yes, it does, but you usually have an author that creates a form in InfoPath, and then you have, okay, so now I've got, it's just uploading the data now, so it's showing me that I am actually on the server on this one. With InfoPath, I would probably have a couple of pieces of recommendation there, and one is that you can do so much with simply using lists. So if you look at, for example, a list like an assets list, and you add a new item here, this new item, because it's just in a list, is a form in itself, and I can add things like, does this item travel? I can add all the descriptive values underneath there so that it's really easy. So if I was doing this for someone, I would add asset type, and you could add a description under there, so it becomes a form in itself. So you don't necessarily need InfoPath, you just need to build a list and be very descriptive with the way that you set up the fields and so forth. Does that make sense? Hopefully.
Thanks. Can you give some information on the licensing costs?
Um,
Be able to answer that later
Probably
on. Yeah,
not.
that's all right. I will
Yeah,
address
I
that a
think
bit
'cause it
later.
really depends. Yeah, it depends on the organisation. If you're interested in something like Office 365, there's a wealth of information on that online, and it's per user. So if you've only got a small organisation, but you can also have different types of users. So you might have ones that need lots and lots of access, and then you have these kiosk users, which all just need to view the information. That's quite full. Quite on that too.
You're starting to break up. Sorry, Debbie.
Yeah.
Your audio is starting to break up. Luckily, we're pretty much at the end. Yeah.
There's just one last down the bottom here, you can see about orders in this document, but this is highlighted. Yeah.
It's really bad. Can't really hear anything. What you just said just now. But
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's back. Was that the demo? Was the demo pretty much finished?
Well, yeah, I was going to say I was going to show a couple of things, but we don't need to worry about it.
Okay. Just briefly, we talked about SharePoint 2010 and 2013. What are the key differences between those two versions?
Okay, a lot of it is in the background, so they've done a lot of work around cross-browser, meaning you can use it in Firefox and a lot less issues with all of that sort of thing. And with the devices, so it's a lot easier to use on multiple devices. And with the performance, so they've done a lot of background under the engine type work and all of those social features. The social features that I showed you with the news feeds and the community sites are definitely new in 2013. There's also some improvements to the task list, which are very cool. I didn't show you them, but things like that.
Just two last questions before we wrap up. Do you know if external parties accessing the Extranet require a license as well?
There's a couple of, probably it's too long a discussion for this, but there's a couple of different ways you can invite external people in without them needing to be licensed. So you can invite people in to look at things like your site or whatever, and then you can have anonymous access, which doesn't cost you anything using Office 365 because you've got a public site. But then plus other ones you do require licensing. So yeah, probably a big question.
You talked earlier on about a list. On a list, do you get an audit trail showing change history, or do columns just overwrite like they do on the spreadsheet, like percentage complete, etc.?
You can turn history on. So you can have history on some of the items, and I need to show you, I don't know if it's probably good to demonstrate, but you can turn history on the items so you can see what has changed against certain fields, if that makes sense.
Yep, that's great. Just the last question here. Ben was saying that from his understanding, Office 365 data is located on servers in Singapore, hosted by companies which may not be bound to the new 13 Australian privacy principles. What is your latest advice on storing personally identifiable information on Office 365?
I use it myself for my own business, so I'm probably an advocate. The speed hasn't been too bad, but I do also use another site for our public. This public site's actually hosted out of Australia, so we have our own server for that. As far as the privacy, I do believe that there has been a lot of work around that, and I would need to probably qualify that away at Microsoft qualify that. I feel quite secure in the way that we're using our data kept on the server inside of that is hosted out of Singapore.
Well, thanks very much, Debbie. I think that's basically the last question that we have. We're about 5 minutes out from the end of the webinar. So thank you once again for hosting the webinar for us for the second time, and I think it went really smoothly this time. So yeah, thanks, Debbie, and thank you to Gillian, and thank you to everyone. And I'd just like to quickly talk a little bit about SharePoint through TechSoup Asia, Connecting Up, and TechSoup New Zealand. So through Connecting Up's donation program and New Zealand and Asia, Microsoft donates SharePoint Server 2013 and all of the applicable user and device client access licenses, including Microsoft SharePoint. Microsoft SharePoint Server. We have an explanation on the ranges of products and on the website, so I will send you through the links because it's probably just easier for you to read through it as on the email rather than me explaining it to you, so you can see the prices, etc. on there as well. So if you have any other question about SharePoint, you could see Debbie's contact on there, or email Connecting Up's customer support if you're or Text New Zealand's or Asia's customer support if you have any particular question on the product. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us today. We have our next Tech for Good webinar on the 29th of May. Next month, so that's on cloud computing and where to start, what things to take into consideration, and a range of other things for not-for-profits who are interested in moving to the cloud. Gillian, do you have any last things you would like to say?
Yes, just to thank everyone for joining us today, and we will also be sending everybody a copy of our monthly newsletter, the Tech for Good newsletter, through which people can find out more about upcoming trainings, webinars, conferences that Microsoft organizes or sponsors. So thanks again, Christine, and thanks, Debbie, for today.
All right, great. Thank you, everyone. And as I said, I will send through the link to the recording for the webinar along with some other information afterwards. Thank you and have a good day. Bye.